Once upon a time, we used to listen to each other. Our pain, our joy, our fears, our hopes, and most importantly, our dreams. But somewhere along the way, we got lost and we forgot how to listen. But don't you worry. These stories will have an impact that will help guide you back. Because this is the Rayless Reverie. It was on a Monday morning in August that Miss Back Bay climbed the brownstone steps to the rooming house conducted by Mrs. Edward Southend in Massachusetts Avenue, Boston. Miss Back Bay was short, stout, and 60, and her face was flushed and scowling. "I wish to speak with Mrs. Southend." She snapped at the woman who opened the door. The woman, a middle-aged, quiet-looking little woman, glanced at the card and said, "I am Mrs. Southend, Miss Back Bay. Come this way, please." In the parlor, Miss Back Bay and Mrs. Southend looked into each other's eyes for a few moments and exchanged a silent challenge. Then Miss Back Bay leaned forward in her chair and said, "I have come, Mrs. Southend, to talk with you concerning this affair between your son and my niece, Miss Arletta Back Bay. I have, as you know, brought her up, and I love her as if she were my own daughter. She is the last of the Back Bays, the Back Bays of Back Bay. Our family lived on Beacon Hill when Boston Common was a farming district. The Back Bays are direct descendants of William I, King of England, William the Conqueror." Miss Back Bay drew a long, deep breath. Mrs. Southend was silent. "I have devoted years of my life," Miss Back Bay continued, "to the education of my niece. Nothing has been spared to prepare her for the high social position to which, by her ancestry alone, she is entitled. I am going into this bit of family history so you will understand, so you will see this affair from my viewpoint. I have been exceedingly careful in the selection of her teachers, her associates, and her servants. Your son came to us well recommended by his pastor and by his former employer. I have no fault to find with him as a chauffeur, but as a suitor for the hand of my niece, he is impossible. Absolutely. The thing is absurd. I have done what I could to break up this affair. I have discharged him, but my niece has defied me. She assures me that she loves him and will marry him in spite of everything. She is headstrong, self-willed, and completely bewitched. She has lost all pride in her ancient lineage. Now I come to you to beseech you to use your influence with your son Induce him to leave the city. He must leave the city, if only for a year. I shall pay. Pardon me. Just a moment, Miss Back Bay. Mrs. Southend left the room, and in a few minutes she returned carrying a large volume, her fingers between the pages. As I listened to you, Miss Back Bay, the thought came to me very forcibly that this is a pity, a great pity, that you could not have selected your ancestors as you do your servants, from the better class of respectable working people. But, of course, you could not. You could, however, try to live them down. Forget them. Some of them, anyway. Listen to this biographical sketch of your most famous ancestor. It is from page 659 of the Encyclopedia Britannica. William I, King of England. William the Conqueror. Born 1027 or 1028. He was the bastard son of Robert the Devil, Duke of Normandy, by Arletta, the daughter of a tanner. Mrs. Southend closed the book with a bang. Not too much to boast about, is it? We all have ancestors, Miss Back Bay, but the less said about some of them, the better. And now, if my son wants to go out of his class and mix it up with Robert the Devil and Arletta, why, that's his funeral. You'll excuse me now, Miss Back Bay. I have my husband's dinner to prepare.